From stealing Snickers bars daily from a 7-Eleven in Hawaii to being categorized as Hollywood's most paid actor by Forbes, Dwayne Johnson is one of Hollywood's leading actors with over $800 million in net worth and a shocking story to tell. According to Forbes, this wealthy wrestler turned actor has a vast collection of properties and even holds the title of the most paid actor in Hollywood. However, many are unaware of how much he had to endure on his journey to stardom, how this homeless man of yesterday is now the proud owner of multiple real estate properties in the US, as well as a $27.8 million mansion in Beverly Hills. This is the story of a man who went from having only $7 to his name to becoming one of Hollywood's most influential actors. Dwayne's humble beginnings. Dwayne Johnson wasn't always as wealthy as we've come to know him to be. Born in California on May 2, 1972, Dwayne was raised by Rocky and Ada Johnson. Rocky was a professional wrestler with a bit of Irish ancestry. Rocky, alongside his friend plus tag team partner Tony Atlas, are the first people of color that became tag team champions in the history of the WWE. In fact, Dwayne comes from a long line of wrestlers, as Peter Maivia, an old famous professional wrestler, adopted his mother. His maternal grandmother was a wrestling promoter who managed Polynesian Pacific Pro Wrestling after the death of her husband in 1982 until 1988. Dwayne Johnson is also a non-blood relative to the Anoa'i wrestling family, a family of professional wrestlers that originated from Samoa. In his early years, Dwayne lived with his maternal relatives in Grey Lynn, New Zealand, and there he attended the Richmond Road Primary School, while also playing rugby, before he eventually moved to the US. While in the US, he lived in North Carolina, where he attended Montclair Elementary School, and subsequently moved to Connecticut, where he attended Shepherd Glen Elementary School. Dwayne also proceeded to attend 4 different high schools in Honolulu and Nashville. The traveling culture of his family really shaped Dwayne's childhood, but not in an adventurous manner you're probably expecting. Although he came from a famous family of professional wrestlers, they didn't have as much money as their fame made them seem. As a matter of fact, their financial status was indeed poor. Although the traveling culture adapted him to be able to make friends as quickly as possible, Dwayne couldn't escape the pool of depression that his family and financial problems plunged him into. According to him, his dad had a rugged personality, which involved him spending most of his time on the road rather than at home. And this didn't exactly give Dwayne the kind of environment he needed to enjoy his teenage years. The unrecoverable loss Dwayne experienced. Dwayne's case worsened after his grandfather died of cancer. His grandfather was the one who stood in his father's stead and gave him the support that his father couldn't give. The death of Chief Maivia was an incident that devastated young Dwayne, and his grief was challenging to handle. But Dwayne proved that his granddad still meant the world to him even years after his death, and he did this by having the family's traditional tattoos and remodeling his character in Moana, the animated musical film after his grandfather Maivia. Unfortunately for Dwayne, his granddad's demise wasn't the only death he'd have to suffer, as one of his relatives, Andre the Giant, also passed away. Andre was a French wrestler who suffered from acromegaly and died from it. Dwayne described him as a hero and that relative who loved and treated him as a son. Amid these losses, other things made Dwayne's days even gloomier as they went by. His father was rumored to be involved in a controversial affair between 2 women. One was Luann Crable, while the other was Dwayne's mother, Ada. There was also the alleged raping of a young girl by Rocky, which he vehemently denied. Still, that didn't stop the wrestling community from blacklisting him and his wife from divorcing him. All of these events made Dwayne extremely depressed, especially the time when they got evicted from their house because they couldn't afford the rent. His parents could not even get their things out of the house as the door was locked. At this period, all Dwayne could find when he looked up to his father for inspiration was to train. Being homeless was one of the worst things that could ever happen to Dwayne after his grandfather and uncle died. He wasn't training because he wanted to learn how to fight. Instead, Dwayne felt helpless against the situations around him and needed something to help him fight his feelings of helplessness. So he turned to the ring. Dwayne didn't initially mean for his fitness habit to keep him in shape for his matches. Instead, they started as a coping mechanism for his mental battle. Training all the time for Dwayne was more of a method of mentally controlling what he couldn't control, which included his issues like eviction and poverty. Dwayne stole a Snickers bar from a 7-Eleven daily for a year while he lived in Hawaii as a pre-workout snack. he recently wrote his wrong by buying all the Snickers chocolate from that particular 7-Eleven. The birth of Dwayne's wrestling career. A year after the eviction incident, Dwayne had begun living in a small apartment and was attending the University of Miami. He had been building a promising football career at his level until he sustained an injury that hampered his play. His shoulder injury was so severe that he had to be sidelined in his freshman year. Dwayne dropped out of school for a time and returned later to finish up, but his name wasn't featured on the NFL draft. Dwayne wasn't a quitter, therefore he played for the Calgary Stampeders in Canada. Because this deal wasn't the sweetest, he had to share an apartment with 3 roommates, and yet, not long after, he got kicked off the team. At this point, Dwayne just wanted to end it all. He didn't feel he could keep going because everything seemed against him. Even though he had interests in criminology while in college and budding ambitions for a shot at working with the CIA or the FBI, losing the football scholarship was like removing the rug from under his feet, and his family was financially incapable of pulling him back up. Not to mention his mother almost took her life in front of him, which led to him having severe emotional breakdowns. Knowing his situation clearly, he had to face reality and make a choice soon, to either keep fighting or be kicked out of life. While he was out of the university and with his father, he took an interest in his father's career and decided to become a professional wrestler. His father, Rocky, convinced that Dwayne would fail at business and wrestling, tried to discourage him. However, this didn't stop Dwayne from believing in himself and pursuing his career. He believed this was what he needed to do, and all he had was his gut feeling to prove it. Therefore, he continued to seek his father's assistance until eventually his father agreed and decided to help him start his career as a wrestler. His dad and Pat Patterson trained him, and they taught him all he needed to know about the art of wrestling. Soon, he made his first WWE performance at the 1996 Survivor Series under the name Rocky Maivia. But even here, Dwayne still faced some opposition in the form of unacceptance by the crowd. But he wasn't prepared to let his career as a professional wrestler be cut short before it even began. His willingness to make it work and not allow his father's prediction to come to pass led to him seeking innovative ways to improve his representation to the crowd. Some adjustments to his gimmick and stage attitude brought him the desired results. A year after his debut, he won the WWF Intercontinental Championship and changed his name to The Rock. His professional wrestling skills attracted several titles, and he still carries those honors as proudly as when he had just received them. Dwayne Johnson's fame as a wrestler slowly began to spread, and things began to look good for him. And while he proceeded to make groundbreaking achievements in the wrestling industry, he was also setting the stage for his incoming career as an actor, which would eventually take him to heights he hadn't been to before. A crossover to mainstream in the movie industry. The year 2000 was a memorable year for the icon, as it marked his transition from the sports industry to the movie industry, where he has made tremendous progress since his first role. But it all began with a feature in the video of the popular single called It Doesn't Matter by Wyclef Jean. Although Dwayne had appeared on the 70s show the previous year as Rocky Johnson, the following year he was featured as an alien wrestler in the movie Star Trek Voyager, which showcased Dwayne Johnson's popular wrestling moves in the movie. At this point, he was no longer using his father's identity, but his instead. But even with all these little opportunities he was getting in the movie industry, he still had a long way to becoming the excellent movie star we know today. But he was indeed close. And so, for the first time in his life, in the year 2000, Dwayne also hosted Saturday Night Live, where fellow wrestlers like Big Show, Mick Foley, and others were also present. According to Dwayne, he believes that the episode's success led him to receiving top offers from Hollywood studios. Even after that time, he has hosted 4 other episodes of SNL so far in his career. Eventually, we began seeing many top names in the industry praising Dwayne's talent and recommending him to other platforms. Universal Pictures even proceeded to create a spin-off for his award-winning character, the Scorpion King, and this was the turning point that Dwayne needed for his career shift. Not far down the line, Dwayne also played a significant role in helping to revive the franchise Fast and Furious, which was almost losing the attention of its fans. We also learned from Dwayne Johnson that he owes his career to this studio, as they were the first to believe in him and help him get the opportunities he needed to kickstart his acting career. Dwayne Johnson had always wanted to go into the movie industry and make films, And thanks to Universal Pictures, his dream came true because of them. Speaking of the award-winning character Dwayne Johnson played, his first performance where the character was displayed was in the motion picture called The Mummy Returns. This movie grossed $169.3 million worldwide in 2017. This success influenced the studio to do a spin-off of The Scorpion King. He received a very generous amount from the movie, which led to him holding the Guinness World Record for the highest paid actor in their first lead role. Dwayne's life hasn't remained the same after this, as he goes on to cementing his status as a Hollywood leading man and one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. Some of his more notable roles are in the Fast and Furious saga, where he plays Luke Hobbs, who is tasked to run down criminals, and Moana, where he plays Maui, a demigod in the Disney musical, which he has since mentioned is based on his own grandfather. More recently, he plays a supervillain turned anti-hero in Black Adam. He now lives his best life without struggling against the financial and emotional depression he struggled with during his growing years. Who would have thought that he'd go from homeless to the list of top-earning actors, according to Forbes? Despite all of his success, there are still deep-seated scars that his traumatic childhood and teenagers have left in his mind. He confesses to still working out because he doesn't want to lose it all, and in his words, get evicted tomorrow, just like it happened way back with their former apartment. But even with this fear, he doesn't stop training. This, therefore, shows us the power of consistency and courage. Courage to stand up when we fall, and courage to break out of our dark places and find that freedom we need to move on in life. In Dwayne's case, he found it in wrestling and acting, and you can find yours too, as long as you're determined. For more inspiring videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.